Hello and welcome to the History of Stargate, SG1. Today's episode we're going to be covering the ancient Goa'uld, Marduk. And here we go. Marduk is a Goa'uld who once led an attack on the temple of Jebanna, taking Kendra as a host for another Goa'uld. Once little more than an ashrak, with a name lost to history in the service of Ra, Marduk was sent to kill the ashrak, who was the Goa'uld leader of an area now known as southern Iraq, and quickly rose to become one of Ra's greatest and most trusted generals. It was because of this act that he took the name Marduk, meaning Bull of the Sun. He used this position to great effect when Tiamat launched her revolt against Ra, pledging to remove the Mad Queen if the System Lords gave him free rein to do so, and recognized him as one of their own. Although some wanted him killed for presuming that he could ask for this out of hand, most agreed and hoped for his bloodthirsty nature to either succeed or cause him to die in the attempt. Either outcome would have been acceptable to them. Marduk soon took command of the entire combined fleets, once controlling over a dozen Hataks, as well as countless other support vessels, and executed several attack feigns, which drew Tiamat's forces into traps set in few key systems, destroying the stars of these systems, causing them to go supernova. Marduk's subjects managed to take most of Tiamat's forces out in their suicidal attacks. It was during this time that Marduk himself infiltrated Tiamat's court and engaged her in person, while the space battles distracted her. Even without her space fleets and loyal Jaffa, Tiamat managed to kill Marduk, and he only managed to save himself by luring her into a trap, which he had prepared with the transportation rings. This trap literally cut Tiamat in half, leaving part of her in the temple with Marduk, and the rest transported up to her flagship in orbit. Celebrating his victory, Marduk performed an ancient ritual and expanded upon it by ritually preparing and eating the body of his fallen foe. It was through this that, unexpectedly, he gained Tiamat's knowledge and memories, through which he learned of her plans to create an army of monster Goa'uld, which she was going to use to replace the System Lords. He promptly commanded several Naquadria-laden motherships to plunge into the star, which the planet orbited, causing a mini-nova, which immediately wiped out the small human population as well as Tiamat's orbiting forces. What he did not know was these monster Goa'uld survived. These same memories led Marduk to Quingu, and Onus hosted Goa'uld's son or consort to Tiamat, whom she had entrusted her eye, a powerful artifact which later powered Anubis' mothership. Marduk managed to capture Quingu alive and presented him to the assembled System Lords, sealing the pact which had him join the ranks of System Lords, and naming him the Master of the Eye of Tiamat, as well as all of Tiamat's former possessions. Marduk decapitated and ate Quingu before the other System Lords' very eyes. Starting his new empire, Marduk expanded his following through the Queen Zarpani, one of Tiamat's daughters, who he had spared. In keeping with his high opinion of himself, he wanted nothing less than the physical perfection for other hosts of his subordinates, and was not above taking beings from even the lowest social stature to become hosts. Some symbiotes rejected their hosts, however, and were promptly killed, and served to the others as examples. If Marduk was able to deal with these beings every day for an eternity, then he demanded that they be beautiful and obey his every command. Because of this, Zarpani was kept busy creating replacements. The other System Lords, although acknowledging their debt to him, did not truly welcome Marduk's rise to power. Marduk took over several of his neighbor territories, acting as if he knew them personally, while any spies sent by rival Goa'ulds into his court revealed everything that they knew to him rather than reporting back to their own masters. Continuing to use cannibalism and other tactics which shocked and inspired fear in both his subjects and enemies, he accidentally united his enemies in their denunciation of his barbarism. Despite this, many of the weaker lords feared that they would be taken down if they openly opposed him. Powerful lords such as Ra and Kronos blocked any attempts to rally support against him for as long as he continued to use them, and Marduk soon counted over 100 Goa'uld kills, even with a few System Lords among them. At the height of his power, Marduk's planets included several Naquadria mines, 2 entire shipyards, and even some trinium production facilities. Among these planets was Ziggurat, one of his treasury planets, which contained large amounts of natural deposits of gold quadria, and various crystals and gems which power the Goa'uld technology. His armies numbered in the hundreds of thousands and only grew with each Goa'uld Marduk killed, absorbing their armies into his own. Marduk realized that his strength lay in the name which he had forged for himself, and so he often led the attack fleets personally in order to inspire awe in his allies and bring terror to his foes. He did, however, believe his entire forces to be utterly replaceable and would often send many of his own ships to their deaths in order to achieve his objectives. After he had defeated the enemy, their resources and troops would be used to replace any he had lost in the battles. Despite his total lack of compassion for his own troops, he would never overcommit them even in the days of his madness, and was a shrewd general who picked his battles wisely, often attacking targets with lightning strike attacks, which would subdue the enemy immediately. These tactics worked especially well with primitive planets, which were only good for their human resources, where he could arrive, convert the people, and take whatever he needed with the minimum of fuss. Once he was successful, he would personally address the entire population through making extensive use of the ring transporters, which kept him from ever becoming a target for any length of time. However, brute strength would not always suffice to subdue an enemy, and Marduk knew this fact well. In these cases, he would use the same ring transportation system to insert small amounts of his own troops into enemy key areas. This act often took years for him to build up a fifth column inside a foe's near equal stature to himself, such as when he defeated the Goa'uld Sin and their Empire of the Moon, but would enable him to have enough forces in place so that the enemy would not know that a blow was coming until Marduk himself appeared through the concealed rings to deliver the fatal stroke. Any warriors who joined his forces quickly got used to these tactics, as he would often practice these lessons among them to instill loyalty. Even if this was not enough, his subjects were constantly reminded of all his past successes and glorious battle through an ingenious security system. Marduk's peltax, engine rooms, and all other vital areas of both his ships and temples were marked with cuneiform representations of his defeats of Tiamat, among others which would have some small parts out of order. In order to gain access to these areas, his followers would have to learn these stories by heart, which SG1 would later recognize as being Babylonian creation myths, and correctly identify these incorrect sequences to unlock doors. Outside transportation systems would also have a key in some of these myths to activate receiving stations inside Marduk's strongholds. Occasionally, he would allow his enemies to live, but on the occasion that he did, the hunger to consume their memories within him grew and eventually became his primary focus. The flood of others' memories soon became a cacophony of voices within his head, and he started to kill not only his enemies but also those who suited his increasing bizarre whims. This caused his allies within the System Lords to no longer have any reason to support him, and even his own priesthood began to balk, as any of them could be next on his menu. Seizing this opportunity, Marduk's son, Bel, encouraged a rebellion within Marduk's own people and even supplied them with a fitting punishment. Due to him being a cruel tyrant, eventually his own priests rebelled against him. He was locked in a sarcophagus on planet P2X338, along with the Eye of Tiamat and a carnivorous creature that ate him alive, only to be healed by the sarcophagus, which in turn started the whole process over again. He eventually escaped into the creature and ate his former host. In 1999, Russian doctor of archaeology, Alexander Brisky, began an excavation in southern Iraq, where he found several tablets engraved with Babylonian cuneiform symbols and one with an unknown set of symbols later revealed to be a Stargate address, the coordinates for P2X338. Though the Russians did not have a Stargate at this time, they did have a DHD, which contained these symbols and so classified the entire dig, never allowing it to become public knowledge. 2001, when Russia set up their own Stargate program, Russian Army intelligence gave secret orders to Major Valentin Krinsky to go to the planet and retrieve a magical device known as the Eye of Tiamat, along with Dr. Alexander Brisky. The team did in fact manage to find the eye, along with Marduk's former host with his sarcophagus, but at the same time freed the carnivorous creature, which Marduk had taken as his host. In the creature's body, Marduk was responsible for the deaths of the entire team, either from murdering them himself or causing them to use their cyanide pills to commit suicide, which left him without a viable host, which he could use to escape the ziggurat, and he ate their dead bodies. He cocooned himself in the creature, biding his time. SG1 later came to P2X338, discovering the ziggurat, along with an empty packet of cigarettes, left by the former Russian team. They went back to Earth and reported to Stargate Command, who discovered the facts surrounding the secret Russian team, which led to SG1 being sent back to the planet with a further Russian team to ascertain the status of their comrades. Marduk again awoke when Russian Colonel Zhukov set off a booby trap, causing the entrance to the ziggurat to close. He attacked Lieutenant Tolnev in the body of the creature, poisoning her, before he took Major Sergei as a host. In his new body, Marduk attempted to kill the other Tau'ri in order to escape and once again take a place of power. Due to his host's memories, he knew of the Russian team's attempt to retrieve the Eye of Tiamat, and so attempted to retrieve it from the Russian commander, Zhukov. Before killing him, Zhukov seemed to be about to throw him the eye, but instead throwed him a grenade, which had its pin pulled. This caused the room they were in to collapse upon itself, an event which Colonel Jack O'Neill witnessed, and so SG1 presumed Marduk to be killed. During this time, Dr. Daniel Jackson managed to find some transportation rings, which he believed would take them to another temple miles away. Marduk had survived the grenade, only losing the arm which he had held the grenade, and managed to free himself from the rubble in time to discover SG1 just before they were about to ring out. Major Samantha Carter used a remote to activate a pile of C4 along with some Russian explosives, and the group escaped through the rings. Marduk was thought killed when the explosives detonated, destroying the ziggurat and apparently killing him. However, due to the Karakesh he had acquired when freed from his sarcophagus, he was able to survive the blast, but was buried beneath tons of rock. If not for the timely arrival of Anubis looking for the eye, he would surely have died. Anubis, amused by finding Marduk in this current state, restored him to health, intending to torture and interrogate him, but found that his continual trauma of dying and being reborn had taken its toll on Marduk's mind. Marduk now believed himself to be Ramen, a minor system lord of rain and thunder, whom he had once destroyed earlier in his life, a fact which amused Anubis further, which made him take his new Ramen into his service. Setting him up as one of his many underlings, he placed Ramen in direct control of his agent Osiris, though neither of them were aware of the former background together. Anubis simply waited to see if Ramen would regain his true self once more, and was curious to see what havoc he would cause if he ever did. Although it is unknown if it ever happened, it was thought that if Ramen was exposed to any SGC personnel, then he might recall his original identity, and with it, remember that his current host contained intimate details of the Tau'ri Stargate program, details that he would surely use to bargain his way back into power. Hey, thank you for watching the history of Stargate. Much of this information is or is not canon. It's from Stargate SG1 Living Gods, Stargate System Lords, originally named Stargate SG1 False Gods, Stargate System Lords. It is a rule book for the Stargate SG1 role-playing games, and it covers System Lords seen in Stargate SG1. Anyways, thanks for watching and have a great day. Bye-bye.